If you look at digitization, it touches every element of our societies, our economies, the way in which people access information. And so it's very much a cross-cutting issue. So it's time that we also connect the dots. And I'm convinced that lawmakers and governments cannot do this alone. And that, frankly, there's not the amount of trust in government and politics that we may hope for across the Atlantic. And so it's important that different stakeholders, the private sector, civil society, people in academia, experts in the field of security and technology, come together and draft this agenda. So what we basically need is a sort of coalition of transatlantic commitment that goes beyond government-to-government relations.
Well, lots of people have lists of issues, particularly digital issues, that they think need to be addressed by the United States and the European Union in common. However, history shows us that we need a bigger framework. We need a political commitment to the process. And the model is the new transatlantic agenda, which dates from 1996, I believe, and which set political objectives for the partnership. We need to revisit this exercise because we need a political commitment to the agenda before we begin to address the agenda. And that is one of the purposes of the Transatlantic Policy Network exercise, and EIF are part of it.
I think it's about getting the stakeholders engaged. I think that we need to have everyone involved. It's a lot of debate now about consumers and governments, but we also need to make sure that companies are on board and business. And then we need to find the stakeholders that are needed for this debate and bring them together.
One of the main topics that I think we must address now is to have a rules-based frame around digital trade. We see that trade is rapidly evolving, services are crossing borders at the click of a mouse, and this is all very exciting. But it's also important that the rule of law retains its meaning and its implementation online. So that is what I think is vitally important now, that the open societies, the open economies, the supporters of the open internet in this world, in other words, the democracies of this world, of which the US and the EU are still the key leaders, drive this rules-based digital trade agenda?
Well, we need to be forward-looking. The current agenda is a bit bogged down always in privacy issues, but we need to look at the technology explosion that's in front of us, and we need to do it together, notably the future of work and artificial intelligence, which is beginning to emerge as a high concern in the political world, for better or for worse. So we think in this process, EIF thinks that the future of work is number one. We then have identified several others. We need to be sensitive to consumer and citizens' interests and expectations, and policies that lead in that direction are important. We need to address the rapidly expanding sphere of data. We need to structure that debate within the bigger picture. We need common policies for third world relationships and trade, partnerships and trading relationships, and try to harmonize our approach to the digital dimension. And finally, we need to balance freedoms and obligations and address the growing concerns around the threat to the democratic processes.
I think we need to start with the biggest issues, actually, and still I would say the elephant in the room is all around data. We need to address that because it's important, and it's important for everyone who is engaging in the digital economy. So it's all about actually addressing it, trying to sort it out in the best possible way.